Hey guys, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. We are going to be starting our third week of the fall garden tour. If you are new around here, welcome. Thanks for joining us and hanging out with us. As we are planting a lot and growing a lot through the fall and the winter, I have incorporated the weekly garden tours. This is something that I do a lot in the summer, and I just really enjoy it. I love showing you guys what I'm growing. I love offering some inspiration to you guys and just some real life, some of the things that just aren't working well for us. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for joining, and we'll get started. I also find Arkansas weather quite ridiculous. Last week I did the fall garden tour and it was like 47 degrees. I was freezing, you know, Arkansas problems. And then this week it is muggy, like in the 70s, just gross, honestly. It's just a nasty day. So there is some up and down weather we have going on. I don't know if you guys live in a state like this, but Arkansas is kind of known for its wonky weather. It's like someone posted something the other day and it was like you've got winter in the morning, spring by 10, summer by noon, and then fall in the afternoon. And I was like, yes, that is such a true representation of what Arkansas weather is like right now. So a lot of my things were thriving, loving the colder temperatures, especially like my brassicas and things like that. Then we've kind of had a heat spike this week, high 70s, upper 80s, and so they're not really loving that as much. This poor citronella. Nathan loves citronella. I don't know anything about citronella. Maybe you guys can help me out a bit. But is there a way that I can overwinter this, or is it just going to die and I'm going to have to buy another plant next year? I have no idea. I'm surprised though. I've had this, gosh, since the beginning of summer. And yes, things are dying. I'm coming through and picking them off. But for the most part, this plant has hung on really well. I've got another one over there in the garden that seems to be dying as well, but I don't know. If you guys have more knowledge on this plant than I do, please share it with me, because I'm trying to figure out what the next step for this thing is. Look at this thing blooming. Oh, I love that. Isn't that like sweet little, it's not fully bloomed, kind of peeking through. I love that. You see we've still got more coming out. This one is beautiful. It has been this full and lush, gosh, I swear, for over a week now. I mean, it's just, it's gorgeous. The one down here, I was letting just die so I could save the seeds from. It has officially done that. So I will pop those bad boys off and just save those for next year's garden. And I had transplanted one in here, and you see that tiny little head starting to form. Oh goodness, that's really exciting. And then we have some volunteers that happened down here. So this is where I had all of the zinnias in the summer, and some of them had just fallen into my citronella plant, as you can see here. And I just let them go. I mean, I'm just a firm believer. Let them do what they need to do. So look at all those in there. I probably need to go through and thin some out. There's quite a bit, but here's another one of my citronella plants still hanging on too. This was like the first year I've really dabbled into flowers. I've planted marigolds in between my tomatoes for years, but I've never grown any other type of like cut flower. Other than sunflowers, usually we throw some of those in there. It's my first year really dabbling into zinnias, and I was just swooned by their beauty and just how resilient those things are. Oh my gosh, they were the gift that kept on giving. So I'm just saving all the seeds that I can. I've mailed out a lot of seeds to friends who didn't have any, and so I'm hoping that I have stashed enough back for me that we can just do, I think my goal for next year is this huge long bed, and the bed down there is just going to be flowers. So we're definitely shifting things up, turning gears in a different direction towards next year, something I've never done before. So if you guys have flower recommendations that do well, pretty low maintenance, leave them below. This is not where you belong. I'm forever trellising these little guys. Usually I stay on top of it a bit better, but some of these have just kind of went rogue. But they're doing really well. I was kind of worried with the weather we were having last week, it being so cold. Look, they're starting to bloom. That's beautiful. But yeah, all of them are just doing lovely, really. These all had died, and so I have some that had grown in the rock, and I literally just picked them up from the rock, planted them, which are what these little guys are, and they've actually done really well. So this really is like one of my favorite views, is walking through the garden and just seeing the trellises just starting to cover. The one over here is really starting to cover. Look at that. Isn't it dreamy? Even though it's not full, I love this space. And yeah, so these are the ones that had grown when I had torn down the bean trellis from the summer. These all had just like seeded, and I've left them. And I'm glad I did, because as ones have died, I've just been able to take from these and plant right in the ground. It's been great. In the summer, that had happened with my Chinese noodle beans. When I was planting them, some of them dropped on the ground. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna leave them. I can't tell you, I probably harvested as many Chinese noodle beans that had grown in the rock that I did from the actual bed that I planted them in. It was just like, nature's beautiful. Look at those blooms. I don't even remember. I just took a variety of the ones I had and chunked in here. I mean, I knew that they were all pole beans, but I didn't really pay attention to what varieties they were. But seeing all these blooms makes me really happy. Maybe we actually will get something, because next week it's supposed to drop cold again. So hopefully these will start doing some stuff soon. A lot of times out in the garden, I'll plant really super easy things, and I do that for a lot of reasons. One, because they are just simply easy to grow. Two, I know that I'm gonna have fails throughout the season. For me, so far, I've been really struggling with my carrots. We'll talk about that in a second. I've resowed my carrots twice now. They're still just, I don't know, they're still just not coming up. I don't really know what I'm doing wrong. So when I have something that is maybe getting me down a bit, like this carrot situation, I can walk through the garden and see something like my beans that are thriving and doing great, and it gives me that hope, like, okay, my carrots may not be doing well, but my beans are still doing well, and that's worth celebrating. So I encourage you guys, if maybe you're growing a fall and winter garden for the first time, pick some easy things. You know, beans, they're gonna die out with the frost, but maybe do radishes. Radishes are super, super easy. It's really hard for them just not to grow. They just kind of thrive in a lot of different conditions, whether they're in a raised bed or a container. You know, they're a 23-day seed to harvest. That's really fun because you don't have to wait a long time. So I just want to encourage you guys, maybe plant something that you know is going to do well, you know is going to thrive. That way, if you have a crop that maybe isn't doing so well, you can just focus on what is, and it'll kind of give you that push to keep on going. All right, here's my beloved carrot bed. So the peas down here are growing like crazy. My beans, I am probably going to be harvesting. Yeah, you guys can see they're not doing well. I'm probably going to be harvesting next week the rest of these and tearing them out. And then I will just be putting peas in their place. They're just starting to die. They've been in here for quite a while, so they're just ready. They're just ready to come out. I mean, they're still producing, but their time is coming to an end. They're just starting to not look good. Thankfully, the peas, though, are super easy, super fast growing. So what I will more than likely do is when I rip up those beans, just resow these peas in its place. I haven't gotten anything off of them yet, but I honestly feel like it will not be that long until I do. I'm like forever stuffing things in my pockets. So peas are one of those really cool things. When you're growing in the winter, a lot of times you want to make sure that you get your things in the ground early enough, because they are going to go dormant during the winter, which simply just means that they're going to quit growing. There's not going to be enough sunlight, it's going to be too cold, but they'll still store, especially like your carrots. So, and when you plant your carrots early enough, they will store in the soil for months, and you can just come out and harvest as you need them. So it's really typical. Most of your plants go dormant. With the peas, it's really cool though. So when you plant peas, they may go dormant in the dead of the winter. But if you leave them in the ground when the spring comes and the longer hours and the sunlight comes back out, they'll just start producing again. So I think that's really, really cool. So you can plant them even later in the fall and be okay, and just know there's going to be a window where they quit producing. When the spring rolls back around, they're just going to start right back up again. So I do have some carrots Definitely not, like all of these are just weeds. That's not a carrot. I have some, not near as many as I was hoping or anticipating for. There's one of the ones from the first planting I did. I know it's kind of hard to see, and it's quite a bit bigger. But I'm starting to see these small ones, it looks like, from the second time I planted out. So if I'm being honest, it discourages me. It does. I love carrots. I planted. I didn't actually grow yet. I planted a lot of different varieties. I was really looking forward to those with our weather. I mean, this is the benefit of living in a place with wonky weather. I guess you need to always find the good in every situation. We still just have these crazy spikes, you know? So part of me feels like I can just keep on re-sowing those carrots and I may actually be okay. The last time I planted these out, because I had spent so long the first time hand seeding hundreds of carrot seeds, I was like, no. So me and Charlie came out here, threw seeds everywhere. I was just like, we'll water them in, thin them out as we need to, just because time. I simply just did not have the time to re-sow all those like I did before. And I don't know, they're still just not doing what I need them to do. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm not going to give up on them yet. I'm just gonna keep on wishing and hoping and praying that I start seeing sprouts just come up like crazy. So in this bed, I've got the radishes here, which we'll take a look at in a second. And then I kind of like blocked them off. So I had like this block be Dino Kale, this block be Scarlet Kale. Then I did these in half, just the spinach that was collard greens, which I had issues. All of my collards got munched down. Thankfully, I had started some inside under the grow light, so I went ahead and transplanted these out this week. And then I did go ahead and direct seed some, and it looks like some of those are actually coming up. So then I've got this little half here is my collard greens. None of my spinach came up, which I thought was probably typical because I'd started the spinach seeds I had inside twice and couldn't get any of the seeds to germinate. So this is Encore Lettuce. I'd started inside, just this good little small head lettuce. And I went ahead and planted these out pretty close together. And I'm just planning on harvesting the whole heads whenever they get ready. If you have the liberty of like starting your seeds inside before the season, I really recommend that. You don't have to have a greenhouse. You can have just a makeshift rack and some cheap grow lights on Amazon or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But for me, I much rather transplant things out than direct sow. And for that is because I know that they're good and established when I put them out. I don't have to sit there and wait and hope that they come up. Granted, your root vegetables like your carrots, you have to direct seed those. I have found though with like my beets and things, I actually do really well starting those and then transplanting them out. And for me, I visually like to see and place them where they need to go. If that makes sense. I know it seems kind of silly, but oftentimes, especially in the spring garden, I'm going to be moving my plants everywhere. Like, okay, visually, is this what I want? Does this make the most sense? And I don't know, I'm just that type of person that I like seeing it there and having the ability to move it instead of like direct sowing it and just waiting for it to come up. I've got my little Dino Kale coming up. I had transplanted some of these out as well that I'd started inside. So we've got this row and this row. These actually get kind of big. And then over here is my Scarlet Kale. These little bitty guys. Look how beautiful this is. It actually tastes really well too. We saute this kale and eat it a lot. Have it fresh in salads. Got some coming up over here. So yeah, this I'd seeded and I'm just hoping that it comes up. These I'd had extra inside and I just went ahead and sowed them out. All of my radish are doing great now that the pesky little grasshoppers can't get to them. I'm gonna take some bricks off, show you guys. Look at that, look how big it's getting. You can actually, I wonder if we can see what's going on down here. It's like my favorite thing. Oh, look at that! It's my favorite thing with root vegetables is to be able to pull the soil back, see what's going on, be like, okay, I'll leave it a few more days. That actually needs to be left quite a bit longer, but I actually really enjoy doing that. I remember with my beets, I came out here like every single day and I'd move the soil back away from it. I was like, okay, do I harvest them? Do I not? And then some of them I had planted like mammoth beets. So I knew that they were gonna get like quite a bit bigger. And I was just like, okay, you can leave them, you can leave them. Down here are my rutabagas. They are actually doing really well. As you can see, I guess we got quite a bit of rain last night. I took my little rain gauge down. I need to put it back up, but these things are getting big. Also, I don't know, you guys probably do. Can you eat the tops of the rutabagas like greens? Like, you know, you do with your beets and stuff? But they're all starting to come up. I think I'd only sowed, well, there's some back there. I didn't sow very many. I think from where the T-post was back is what I did. And I had actually transplanted these out. And again, one of those root vegetables you probably are told to direct sow, but I just have really good luck with stuff like that, starting them and then moving them out. This bed I also had to re-sow. So I had several different beet varieties, like in this half. And then I had like 2 or 3 different turnips, like Hackaway turnips, purple top turnips. And then they all got munched away. Nathan was so sweet and helped me sow this bed. And then all his hard work was for nothing. As you can see, there's some more turnips. I let the kids come back through and sow these. So I'll thin. I see some beets popping up there. So this bed looks like things are happening. And then, yeah, my plan will just be, I don't even know how they sowed them. They probably like just threw them in there, and that's okay. I'll just go back through and thin out as I need to. I don't remember if I had this bed done our last garden tour, but I finally got insect netting on here. All of these right here are my Haas tools, like icicle radish and yellow radish. Look at these things. These came up in 2 days. I'll go through. Some of these are kind of close together. Some of these I'll go through and just thin those out. I am just ridiculously impressed though. The grasshoppers took some of them before they came up, so I'll just go through and re-sow. But 2 days, you guys. That is like, that's what I enjoy. Some quick turnaround stuff. And I just went through and sowed some more scarlet kale, some more Dino Kale, some curly kale. Mainly because I didn't know nothing was coming up in the bed over there, and I got a little worried. So I went ahead and sowed some more, and I was going back and forth on whether I should do lettuce or kales, and kales were just much more versatile for us, but some of my stuff didn't come up in my Greenstalk, so I planted a lot of different lettuces in my Greenstalk, hoping that, you know, between all of these something will happen. It's so weird, you know, like some years you just have like really good successes and it's just easy. Typically the fall garden is much easier. You just don't have a lot of the elements that you're dealing with the summer garden. But I swear, the Lord tried to teach me something every time I plant, no matter what season it is in. Right now, I keep asking, like, what are you trying to teach me? Like, why are these beds not sprouting? What is going on? I think the conclusion is He is teaching me to be faithful even when it doesn't sprout. So even though I'm sowing these things and they don't sprout, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to keep re-sowing. I'm going to be faithful to the garden, tending to this as He has called me to. And then they're going to sprout, and I'm going to realize that it was well worth the wait. So I don't know, as you guys are trying to figure these things out, and maybe things, I do get a lot of messages of, you know, things failed, and that's what happens. Things fail in a garden. But figure out like what you can learn from that process. What is God teaching you? You know, just figure out what you are learning through the process, and I promise it is well worth the wait. It is well worth the failed crop, whatever that looks like. And for me, we use the garden as a huge teaching tool for our children. And so when they come out here and they plant something and it fails, it is a good lesson. It's like God's teaching me the lesson, so I can then in turn teach my children the lesson. Like, stay faithful, re-sow, do the necessary steps, water, tend to it, and it will grow. It may just take a bit longer, and knowing that that's okay. Same with me. It takes me sometimes. Maybe I have to fail a few times before I get the hang of something, or before I learn the lesson that's trying to be taught. I just find it crazy how much you learn from the garden. I learned so many life lessons out here in my garden, and I'm able to apply that. I'm able to teach my children, and for me, that will always make doing this right here so worth it. Look at these peas. I gotta take the netting off to show you guys. I know you can kind of see these through here better, but oh, I missed one. Look at them. Don't they look so good? Everything's coming up really, really good in here. These beans I planted, some of them I planted later, so like these are starting to fizzle out. But these, as you can see, we've been harvesting off of these like every week for dinner or lunch or whatever, and they're still doing okay. So I'm gonna let these go a bit more. But then I went ahead and just all that greenery you see, I just keep sowing peas. This poor little guy got taken out by the rain. So this is cilantro. I've got some bunching onions. I've got the Encore Lettuce. That looks like some chard. This is either cilantro or parsley. I've planted a couple herbs in here. You can see I've got some stuff coming up down there. Some kale. Lots of bunching onions up here actually, and just herbs. Look at these. Aren't these cute? I got these from my friend Sean, and I just think these bunching onions are my favorite. But I've got lots of lettuces tucked away in here, down here. So I'm hoping, my hope for this thing is that it's just going to be protruding with like herbs around the top, onions, some kales, but then most just some really nice lettuces. This came from a mix, I think. That looks like some sort of like bok choy or pak choy or something. I've had a hard time with this, but I think it's just been my fault. There was a few days I missed watering when it had gotten hot, and that was probably just a user error, but things are starting to happen. I think everyone needs a bed like this. One that you just don't worry about. It's an extra bed, and that's exactly what this is. Down here were the strawberries from the spring and the summer, and as you can see, there's weeds everywhere. That's okay. I'm not even worried about it. And then I had extra, so I had an extra cabbage I threw in here. This is probably like a broccoli or a cauliflower. That's a broccoli or a cauliflower. This is a kohlrabi. You see it's starting to do what it's supposed to do. I love that. I've got some rutabagas thrown in there, some rutabagas chunked in here. So this was literally just what I had extra of. I didn't want to compost it. I had this space here, so I just filled it up. I know oftentimes that's a comment that I get a lot is I want to grow this big garden. I want to grow food. I just don't have the space. And let me encourage you. It took me a long time to have this scale of garden. I remember Nathan building me really small raised beds made out of leftover untreated 2x4s that we had laying around, and yes, it did not last long, but it was a stepping stone. And right now these 10 beds that you see, the wood that's actually on here was leftover trim that we got out of our house. So when we had tore the ceilings down in our house, holding the sheetrock up were these strips of wood. So we took that. We also had just 10 that was laying around, and Nathan just built me these beds. They are not pretty by any means, but they work and they get the job done. And so for me, I just needed extra growing space. And I've been talking, to my sister-in-law and just some friends recently about being in that waiting place, being in that stepping stone place. I call them the between places. Knowing that maybe you're in a place where you don't want to be, or maybe it's a temporary thing, you're just there temporarily. That's okay. Work with what you have. Start small. And for me, appreciating what I have now, and I kind of touched on this the other day in a video, I want a lot of things, right? Like I dream a lot of things. I know some of you guys may be watching this and you may not have any of these things, and it seems overwhelming because you are wanting this. You're wanting this big growing space. You're wanting, animals that someone else has on their farm, and that's totally okay to dream those things and want those things. I do the same thing. But I think it's important to know that there are stepping stones in that process. Figure out what you can do where you are. Figure out how you can grow food where you are. Know that there is value in that. By you guys just starting, whether it's in containers, whether you find scrap material, or you send out a mass text to some friends, hey, do you have any tin you're not using or lumber you're not using? Start where you are. Hi.
Mom, it's time for breakfast.
Okay. Just start where you are. My kiddo has no pants on, sorry. And just know that like there's value in that. There's a value in starting small and building from that. So I just want to take a minute today and encourage you. I know I show you guys and I love showing you what I have, but I never want to show you what I have and not encourage you that you can have this too. It's not more than likely a, you know, start out thing. I started a much smaller scale than I am in now. I started growing in containers. I started with a few raised beds in my backyard, and I grew to what you see now. So I just want you to know, for the dreamer, for the person waiting, for the person thinking they can't have it, you can. Start where you are, learn from that experience, grow from that experience. Know that it is a stepping stone for you, and one day you may have a garden this big. You may have a garden bigger than this. You may realize that you're just okay with those containers. Just find value where you are, because I feel like there's a lot to be learned in that. I feel like my garden tours oftentimes roll back around to that, me guys just wanting to encourage you, because I know what it was like watching someone else's dreams happen and question, is this ever gonna happen for me? And I also want you guys to know, I do show you this because I'm passionate about what I do, and I want to encourage you guys and I want to show you what's going on, but I never want to show you this and make you feel like, oh, I want that and it's so not tangible for me. It is. It may just be on a different scale. So I'm sorry that I took that little detour in the garden tour, but I think it's worth doing, because for that person in those in-between places, I want you to know you will have the day where you can grow. It may not be on this scale. You may have those stepping stones, but be encouraged. Don't look at what someone else has and get so caught up in that you forget the value and the beauty in what you have. And so I just think that that is worth taking a second and mentioning and reminding you guys and encouraging you that your time is going to come and you will have it too. Look at all these. So some of them is really weird. I have to go through and re-sow, but some of these are missing, but some of these are just coming up so well. Look at all these beautiful different varieties. Aren't they so pretty? This is just my baby greens. Will be cut and come again. Look at that. That is pretty, y'all. I feel like I'm gonna love this little bed so much. I just love like all the different textures in here. Those go really well in like stir fries or salads. Just having all of those textures all come through and thin these out when they get a bit bigger. But right now I am thoroughly enjoying seeing all these little guys pop up. Lily, what do you do? Get down, get down. She is a little attention hog. This is Nathan's dog. And you see, she's sitting on my feet. I cannot wait to show you this. I tried to show my peeps earlier this week, and when I lifted up the insect netting, fire ants covered my entire body. It was awful. So Nathan has hopefully taken care of the fire ant issue. He got some stuff this week. I don't know, they were just like corroded in the soil. I've never really dealt with ants here, and I know a lot of you guys do. So I was just like, what is going on? But yeah, I literally got bit everywhere. But I want to show you guys these kohlrabi. First year growing kohlrabi. So excited. They're like the coolest alien type plant I have ever seen. And they're just so cool. I have literally been babying these things so much. Like I come out here every day, make sure they have all the right water. Mainly because I've never grown them before, so I want to make sure I don't kill them. But also because I want to say that I successfully grew kohlrabi. Like that is one of the things that I want to check off my list after the fall and the winter's over. But I don't know, have you ever grown it before? It's one of those things that I am loving. I just love looking at it, and seeing the progress of it growing is so cool to me. Well, looks like we are free of fire ants, so that is great. Look at that. Do you see those kohlrabi little bulbs, y'all. Look at that. I am just so incredibly impressed with these plants. Y'all, was that not the most magnificent thing you have ever seen? It is so cool. Like, plants are so cool. I think that I'm like one kind of mesmerized just because I've never grown it before. But even like when my cabbages start to form their heads and like start to look like cabbages, I get so excited because I know what's about to happen. And just watching that process when you're out in the garden every single day, and it's not near as daunting. You don't have all the chores that come with the spring and the summer garden. In my opinion, I just take the time to really watch the things form and grow. And I think it is the coolest thing ever. And these kohlrabi, I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of those, like, every year I look forward to growing it. Look at them. They're all doing so well. So these are like the purple kohlrabi. And then that end was the Vienna, I think is what it was called. In the middle here, we've got Nathan's Brussels sprouts, which I can't even get to those to show you guys. So sorry. But they are in there. And then on the other end, we have got our broccoli. And it is coming up well. Some of them got munched down. I had some extra, so I just reseeded. But look, they're doing really, really well. I'm just super impressed at how fast these things grow, too. It's like every day I come out here and their size doubles. Look at those pumpkins. You know, the ones that I'm not supposed to be growing this time of year. They look awful pretty, don't they? And here is my favorite bed, just full of hope. I'm hoping all of these cabbages make so that I can make some sauerkraut and some kimchi. These are the Tiara Cabbage. These grow like constantly. I remember, I mean, I just put these out a few weeks ago and they are growing exceptionally well. Some of them I think I had to resow, so those are a bit smaller. But I've heard really good things about this variety, that they are quick growing. They are high producers. Produce these uniform 3 to 4 pound cabbage heads, and so far I have just been pleasantly surprised and pleased, honestly, with just how well they've grown. And down here, do y'all remember this just from last week? So these are the Chinese cabbage. Look how huge those are. They're huge. I'm always just so impressed with plants, you know, like, especially, oh, y'all, how did that happen? There's a grasshopper in here. These things, I swear, look at it. You see it right there? I've got the insect netting up. Still being a pest. Of course, we don't have it super, super tight. Look at it. It's a munched little hose in there. Clearly, I'm still dealing with the grasshopper problem. Forever learning from those daggum things. But no, I'm just so impressed with these plants, really, when they're in the right environment and the temperature's right. How they just thrive and how they grow so quickly is mind-blowing to me. I know, like, the broccoli I'm about to show you, I just put this broccoli out not even 3 weeks ago. And I sowed it out just as, like, little bitty starts. Now they are huge. Look how beautiful that is. Absolutely love growing brassicas. I think that they are beautiful. I love the way that they grow. I love the way that they look. I just think all of it's really, really cool. I think that's one of my favorite things about growing food, is just seeing how well things grow in my environment and my growing zone. I know a lot of people around here don't do a fall and winter garden. It is very, very common that they just emphasize on the spring and summer garden. And when I look at all this stuff and I look at how it's thriving, even in my crazy Arkansas weather, I'm like, man, people are missing out. I feel like they're really missing out on the beauty that comes with the fall garden, on, you know, taking a cool walk through it with your coffee or your cup of tea in hand and not having to slave over it. Yes, I'm dealing with grasshoppers, but there's not near as many pests, I feel like, in the fall garden. You do have to worry about cabbage worms and stuff like that with your cabbages, but they're much more manageable. And I find that I enjoy being in the garden a lot more at this time of year. And the fall garden for me is something I'm just doing for my family. I'm not trying to make it profitable. So for me, that takes a lot of stress off of me as well. If something fails, it's okay. I'm not worried about selling it. It's just for my family's leisure. These are all things that we plan on putting up, that we eat a lot. So for me, the fall and the winter garden just kind of gives me a moment to just relax and know that I'm not pressed to sell it. I'm not worried about it. If it fails, I can truly just enjoy the goodness that comes from watching it grow and just seeing what happens. So there it is. All of them growing. It's cauliflower that we have all the way in the middle. I know you can't see really well. They're doing really, really well. This bed is literally the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, these nasturtiums, ever since the weather cooled off a bit, they are doing better than they've done all summer. But these are literally the nasturtium plants I've had in here from the beginning of summer. Look at them all. Isn't that crazy? All of these new buds on them. I think that's magnificent. We've been eating a lot of these. I've still got my basil, which is starting to go to seed, which I'm just going to let it re-self-seed. Look at that. Oh, it's so pretty. Love it. I've got my zinnias popping up. I've got some lettuce varieties we threw in here. That actually looks like it's a mustard, a red mustard. Here's some kale back here. Ooh, this basil smells so good. Here's our lavender from earlier in the season. So this is just kind of our hodgepodge bed. I'm gonna let everything just reseed itself and just let it keep kicking. There is something incredibly peaceful about just hanging out in the garden this time of year. I hope you guys enjoyed everything I showed you. I also hope that it just encouraged you. If your plants just don't germinate and don't grow and they fail, that's okay. Resow them. Resow them, especially if you're in, you know, a zone that you have that leeway and you're not dealing with frost and things like that right now. There's still that little window to just resow and know that you'll be okay. I encourage you, just do it. I know it stinks. I know it was your time, but you are learning through the process, and there's always beauty and value in that. But thank you guys for hanging out in my garden with me today. I hope you enjoyed everything that you guys saw. I hope you're encouraged to grow your own garden and grow your own food. There's just something so magical about it, I promise. Once you do it, you'll be hooked, and you will always be like, oh, I can't just not grow a garden. There's just something so fun and so rewarding about it, honestly. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.